Hello and welcome to The Point. You are having the opportunity today to consider how you can improve on telling yourself the truth. You might say that you're very honest with yourself already. And if that's true for you, this should be a breeze. You should glide through this, and you could use this as a checks and balances to ensure that you really are on a path of healthy honesty, where you look at facts and not all of the ideas and thoughts and judgments that you're making up about those facts. So I have heard coaches say over and over and over, get honest with yourself, get real with yourself, and tell yourself the truth. Well, one of the key elements to doing this is you understanding the role that denial plays in the realm of honesty, self-honesty. So denial can play a critical role in self-honesty because denial is a mechanism that says you are telling yourself the truth when you're not, when in fact you're not. So there's an exercise or a practice that you can go through, and you're going to have an opportunity to walk through this practice to discover if there's a sense of denial in your life that you can clear and repurpose some of the mechanisms that are inside of you and upgrade your operating system, your mental operating system, a bit more towards getting clarity on what the facts are. Because what happens when you're growing, moving forward, changing? You're constantly, setting new baselines to grow from, right? So where's your baseline today? Take a minute and just think about, where is your baseline? Don't even try and say that there's nothing you're fooling yourself about, because you've already thought of at least one thing that you're completely kidding yourself about, that you know you're kidding yourself about, and that you could easily just use as a method to practice and discard. And maybe it's a food you're eating that you jokingly laugh is good for you. Maybe it could be a lot of things, right? So you know already what it is that you're fooling yourself about. So the beauty of that is, it's human. There's no shame, no judgment. The beauty of that is that it gives you a very easy, low-hanging fruit, or if you want to look at it as top-line idea that you could use to practice the minute differences, right, that happen when denial creeps in a fun way, without having to dig too deep into problems and struggles and other things, right? So, and I know you want easier, freer, simpler ways to move forward through change, because that's why you're here. So what are we talking about here? What do you want to get out of this episode more than anything? As a matter of fact, think about what you'd want to get out of this, that if you get out of it, if you take away from this episode, you will breeze through change and have a much easier time with being honest with yourself. Here's a tip and a trick for you. Stay in constant contact and touch with your version of a rear view mirror. However you see it, however you think of it, have your rear view mirror always handy to remind yourself of what things in behaviors and thoughts and actions that you are keeping in that rear view mirror and not bringing forward again. And also that you can quickly move things. If you've worked on programs here, you've gone through a process, you've had the opportunity to rewire and have an automation with a rear view mirror that keeps things in behind you. Keep that rear view mirror ready and automated at all times. Another one is repurpose the trigger of denial. If you notice, so you know that there's something you're fooling yourself about, take that and repurpose that. Instead of being a mechanism of denial, turn it into a mechanism where you are able to shift into a truth or a reality. The easy, simple way of moving forward into that is to focus on facts. So shift towards the facts. When you're noticing denial and you're having fun, just shift quickly and say, oh, this is my health food. right? We're jokingly saying that we're eating something that we know is not necessarily something we want to eat. It's a simple practice of let's just get honest with yourself. Just get honest with yourself in a simple way. You may also say with something like this, man, when can it be simple? I don't want to nitpick. I don't want to always pull things apart, always have to dig deep and look at things. Absolutely. This is not something to do as a standard way of living to beat yourself up. If you're turning some strategies like this into ways to continually beat yourself up, you're doing it wrong. Stop using strategies that are forward-moving strategies to beat yourself up and tell yourself things that aren't true about yourself. You could completely turn that around with this process right here of breaking denial and really learning to be honest with you. Changing the denial mechanism into a trigger to investigate and research and look for actual facts. A simple way, we're using the example, right? So I've given you the example of food. Can a piece of cake really help you feel fulfilled? If you have that set as a trigger for a reward, absolutely. It can support the feeling of fulfillment and of accomplishment, and it can help you repeat if it's something you really want. This is going deeper into the strategies, so we'll bring it back on top line for you so that you can focus and stay to the point on how to get honest with yourself in an easy and effortless fashion. When you're repurposing, when you notice some form of denial, repurpose it to find facts. In scenario 1 with the shortening base frosting is you just look at the ingredients. Actually, any food, look at the ingredients and at least tell yourself what you're actually eating. It's a fact. Now, once you start looking for facts, you will then build on those facts. You could go as simple as, what is the price? What is the weight? What is the size? What are you sitting it on? Just practice looking for facts. It may not make sense to you right now why you are looking for these simple forms in this type of idea. And what will happen for you is that it will grow. Consider the idea that you practice it in something simple there, and then something very complex that is attached to things that your denial is keeping you from becomes simpler to unwind. That's the idea of designing strengths. We practice, we experience moving forward with the greatest ways of yourself. You get to just make minor little shifts and changes in your perspective or your behavior and nuances to become much more expert with the greatest parts of you. And in that, as you practice that, you find that it becomes very natural to then do that with much more complex circumstances and situations in your life. But you start just by exercising in simple steps towards something that you want in a baseline. So again, we're back to that idea of creating the baseline that you can grow from. Step number 1 of any baseline is get honest, get real, and get to the facts. Repurpose the trigger, learn to enjoy that investigative process, and notice if you have feelings, discomfort, or anything else that comes up. The reaction is more of a trained response than it is a needed response or necessary response. When we're dealing with wanting to change and the foundation of getting honest with yourself, we're going to break denial. You want to break the denial, repurpose it as a BS detector. So your denial trigger, whatever it is that keeps you in denial, could be repurposed to notice when you're kidding yourself or when facts are showing up that you judge. So that brings me to the next point of you can consider this idea that the reason not to consider denial, the reason not to do these things is that denial is typically a protector. Denial is typically keeping you from considering things that you want to avoid. And that's a whole other place to uncover facts, because there's usually beliefs with clients when especially when you get to join a group, when you're part of a group going through a process to really look at facts and really allow open space for reactions and emotions and thoughts and other things about the facts so that everyone can kind of discover. It becomes an effect often called popcorn, of where ideas just start flowing in of all the reasons we might, that denial or that framework that we're using mentally is supporting something or protecting something. So it's a way of protecting yourself. You may have experienced at a time in your life where you think that you are a sabotage, that you are a saboteur, or that a part of you is always sabotaging you. The spirit of self-sabotage can be a very significant obstacle for many. The idea with self-sabotage is that it's typically a defense mechanism, and your greatest champion is there keeping you from a greater disappointment or a fear or something else. And again, that champion can be repurposed. That part of you, that way of thinking can be repurposed and aimed towards doing something different as a champion to help you move forward without that happening. Breaking down the denial, not allowing the denial to lead your life, not allowing that lack of honesty, that lack of clarity to take an active role in how you're moving forward toward something that you want. In this process, one of the things you notice as the observer are the feelings and the thoughts that you're coming up with. You've already thought of a few situations. Pin those. If you have a pen, so if you're driving, don't do this. If you're in the grocery store, maybe you have a pen for your list and you could stop and just write down a few things of the thought you had that is that idea that you're protecting. You've already thought of something that you're protecting, a reason why you don't want to look at an actual truth about something. Focusing on the facts always keeps us better, and then noticing. Now, a great practice once you've done this is to sit down and list the facts that you've created, the list of facts, and separate what the other things that you've noticed are more observations, judgments, feelings, all those belief systems and sentences that start getting put together about something that you are not quite ready to look at square on. Breathe for 1 second here and think through. Take an intentional deep breath. And in that deep breath, consider removing judgment for yourself and others as to whether or not these triggers and mechanisms are anything of good or bad. Because some triggers and mechanisms you may want to uncover and go through, your instincts are going to tell you the difference between whether or not you should proceed or hold off. The idea is you've developed a belief system that says it doesn't benefit me to dig, it doesn't benefit me to consider, it doesn't benefit me to do these things, because there's another belief system under that says that if you feel something, it's going to stay in you. And the truth is that if you feel something, it's a way of learning what you need to learn so that you can move forward with better information than you had before. Either way, none of these feelings stay. Now, here's a way to flip your mind with that. If you've suffered or had thoughts of that are less resourceful, more on the side of depression and other things, you've heard, and if you haven't, you've known people that have, and you'll notice that it's simple to believe that the good feelings just are fleeting. They come and go, but the negative feelings are stuck. You can't get past them. There's a mechanism happening for you that you're utilizing to keep that going, and that is, whether you believe it or not, a pretty awesome skill to be able to discern and delineate between different types of feelings and choose which ones to hang on to, and whether you feel at choice or not. So if you can think of a feeling that is fleeting and you'd love to have more of, and if you can think of a thought or a feeling that sticks that you'd like to get rid of, we can flip those and start working on something better. Now, it's not always that easy, and sometimes that takes professional help. No one can tell you which is true. So you get to choose for yourself how easy it is to flip those and whether or not you're going to start working in that realm of thinking about what feelings do you want to keep and what feelings do you want to let go of. That brings us back to another level of thoughts around getting honest with ourselves and denial. Typically, if we're repeating a feeling over and over and over, if you have recurring feelings that you'd love to get rid of, it's serving a purpose somewhere That's where you'd start with getting honest with yourself. Is really, what are you protecting with these feelings? The muddier it is, the more reason there is to get outside help. Even if you deploy your decision-making in an area to someone else for a period of time, you can still maintain autonomy because they're only managing that decision as long as you allow them, request them, and submit to the decisions they're making. You know, the idea of getting honest with yourself, that can be pretty simple, right? If it's a struggle or if there's a block off, it does help to look at where we might be benefiting from not getting honest with ourselves. And that's where we start digging or looking at the veil of denial and how that works. Denial is not all about some addiction that can't be stopped, or it's not about, it's denial is, we can be in denial about all kinds of things. And we also can remove it by repurposing it. So repurpose the trigger and the mechanism in you to be in denial towards being a fact-finding machine, and then turn that into the fact-finding machine part of you. And when you notice the self-protective part, put that part of yourself aim that part of yourself and repurpose that to being offensively amazing, right? Because the best defense is a good offense. And you can repurpose yourself in those two ways to move forward quickly. But the thought loop alone, if you get stuck in a thought loop, that feelings get stuck in us, the wrong feelings get stuck in us and don't move through us, then that's where you start with the idea around denial and getting honest. But today is a day of gratitude. It is a day of awareness. It is a day to repurpose parts of you that are amazing and wonderful, that have been protecting you for many years. And if you want to get honest with yourself and it's easy, keep doing it. Keep getting real. Look in the mirror and say things out loud. And if you're wanting to be honest with yourself and it's averting you, it's not quite, you're not nailing it. There's things that are hanging on. Take a minute to consider repurposing the mechanisms that are in you that choose denial and that keep you in a thought loop of protecting your feelings. And remember, it's all about flow. That is the point with Jeff Spikes. And I look forward to seeing you the next time. Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. The greatest compliment you could give me is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all your friends. So please, if you're on Spotify, iHeart, or iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and review. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Make sure to tag me. I love hearing from you, the listeners of this show. The links for all my social and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage with me in anything related to my coaching, consulting, speaking, or programs, please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.